You just mentioned VR. We are now coming to the subject of VR journalism ready to go mainstream, the transformative impact of VR reality. We are going further into that subject. I'm quite sure that VR will impact several content verticals, including news, films, travel, music, and sports. So Jens will now share insights on VR trends and tell you more about what Jaunt have learned in bringing that subject up the way they do it, through working with content creators, doing pioneering work in VR. Where are you? Here are you, Jens. Jens Christensen, CEO and founder of Jaunt VR in the USA. Welcome on stage.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. At Jaunt, we're really working on providing content for VR. So this is a year where people are really going to become aware of VR. It's kind of the year that VR is going mainstream. And what we're focusing on is really providing content for all of these new headsets. And as I'll talk in the presentation, also for mobile. We're big believers that mobile is going to be the primary way people are going to be consuming VR content. VR, we believe, is going to really transform a lot of things. Now, in this talk, I'll talk about the different areas it's going to transform, and I'll obviously cover some of the journalistic areas that it's already transforming. One of the key things with VR is that not only can you transport somebody somewhere, you can also sort of be somebody. You know, when you take a camera on location, the viewer actually becomes the camera, gets the viewpoint of the camera in a very powerful way. Just a little bit about our company. We're almost 3 years old. We were started in Palo Alto, California, and we raised about $100 million from VCs, Google, Disney. Here in Germany, investors include Axel Springer and ProSieben. So one of the things about VR is it's really taking off. And especially this year, just a few weeks from now, Oculus is going to release the Rift headset for the first time. That's going to be followed by the PlayStation VR being released, the HTC Vive. Eventually, you're going to see more augmented reality headsets being released. So there's a ton going on. The New York Times recently released 1.2 million headsets to their Sunday subscribers. These were cardboard headsets that works with mobile, but it was really the first way a lot of people were able to see VR. In addition to the Google Cardboard headsets, there are a lot of sort of intermediary solutions. Even Mattel has a ViewMaster VR, as well as the Gear VR, which is really a great experience for $99. It requires a Samsung phone, but it's a really powerful VR mobile experience. In terms of the market landscape, you basically have companies playing along in the ecosystem, both on the hardware side, on the content side, and on the software side. And there are a few companies like ourselves, Jaunt and Oculus, who are sort of in the middle of the VR ecosystem, where we're focusing on all three. So you can think of three main types of content. One thing that Ben was talking a lot about is 360 video content. We're seeing a lot of uptake in that. And one thing to understand is VR content that you record can also be released as 360 video content. So they're not mutually exclusive. If you release it on mobile as VR content, it becomes a more immersive experience. And then in addition to this, you have rendered content that's rendered in real time that tends to be mostly gaming content. And the thing about gaming content is that it really requires a big PC and a tethered headset like the ones, the Rift or the HTC Vive. So the powerful thing about video VR is it can be played back on mobile. VR has been around for a while. That's actually a young Christopher Walken from the movie Brainstorm, 1983, wearing a cool headset. The Matrix came out in '99 about alternate realities. And there's an interesting book, Ready Player One, that sort of describes a very dystopian future in VR that's being turned into a Spielberg movie soon. One thing about VR, it's actually very hard to do. Up till recently, it was also very expensive. So that's a headset from the Stanford VR lab. At the time that was taken, it was about a $40,000 headset. This was like 5 or 6 years ago. And it was really confined mostly to just military and industrial applications. That all changed in late 2012 with the Oculus DK1 that came out. It was priced at $399. It obviously wasn't a consumer product, but it inspired a lot of people, inspired developers. It inspired us. When we got the headset, we realized, wow, we have to do something with this, and thought about the idea of bringing sort of reality into virtual reality, that is capturing the world around you as opposed to just doing games. And one thing about VR is that it also, as Google showed, with a simple cardboard implementation, just a couple of lenses in front of your mobile phone can play on your mobile phone. And it brings up an important point that VR, the reason VR is happening now and didn't happen 20 years ago or 15 years ago is because of the mobile phone technology. It is because of the lightweight, high-resolution screens, the sensors that are in the phone. People often ask me, why now? Well, if it didn't succeed before, why is it going to succeed now? Well, the reason is it's much more accessible to people now. The timing is right, the technology is there. It really started with gaming, VR, and if you look at this picture here, you can see that, for gaming, you typically require a tethered headset to a big, powerful PC. You typically have some kind of controller to control yourself in the game. So it requires quite a bit more than just video VR. What we call cinematic VR really has a much broader appeal. All you really need is a mobile phone and a headset. And frankly, if you don't have a headset, you can view it in mono and you can get a cool 360 experience. So that's a very important point about it. This is already in your pocket. There are 2 billion smartphones out there today. There's going to go to 4 billion by 2020. We think this is going to be the primary delivery mechanism of VR. And what's interesting is even the people that have been focused mostly on tethered headsets are realizing that. So John Carmack is the CTO of Oculus. Really an amazing guy, created the Doom video game. And he's saying that they're realizing that at least half the uses of VR are what they call media VR, and what we call cinematic VR. People find this type of VR content very compelling. So let's look at some of the things that VR is already starting to transform. One area is music. So music is very powerful because you create an emotional connection very quickly with people in music. There's always, when people put on the headset, they have essentially this kind of oh wow moment. But beyond that, you need to keep them there with something engaging. And music really helps that because you connect emotionally with the singer. And so we've done work with Paul McCartney and Big Sean and Jack White as well, and we continue to do work in music. Film is another area. There's a lot of work, interesting work that needs to be done in the film area, and it has to do with how to tell a story in VR. What's the storytelling grammar in VR when you no longer have traditional kind of techniques that you're used to when you have a 16:9 screen in front of you. And one thing we did recently is for the Sundance Film Festival, we teamed up with Lynette Waldworth, who created collisions that were shown first at Davos and then at Sundance. And it's a very powerful piece that she did in the Australian outback around a Neary, whom picture you see there, who witnessed an atomic explosion 50 years ago and how that transformed their life. And it's really a very interesting piece. It's 17 minutes long, so it's a bit longer than most pieces. It includes drone footage. It includes special effects. I think it was extremely well done. We also, on the more comedic side, we did a great piece with Zoolander. So Zoolander 2 came out, and I encourage you to check it out. It's available in our app. As actually, pretty much all the pieces I'm discussing are. We also do things in sports. So VR is going to be very powerful for sports because several reasons. The main one, I believe, has to do with perspective. When you put on a headset and you look around, you create a 3D model in your brain of what you're seeing, just like you do in real life. And that enables you to get a sense of scale and size and distance. And that's perfect for sports. So if we put you in VR courtside at a basketball game, suddenly you realize, wow, look how tall these players are. Look how fast they are. And that's something you never get on a 16 by 9 screen. You know, people are always amazed when they go to a live event how different it is, and VR gives you that. So we recently did a thing with the NFL for the Super Bowl that's a powerful experience. Travel is another area. This is kind of a no-brainer sort of in terms of monetizing VR, is people can go to sites that they may be thinking about going. You know, you can be on a beach or a resort that you're thinking about going to, or, you know, even the hotel you're thinking about. So we're going to see a lot of travel/VR uses. Advertising is another area. We recently did a piece with North Face where they take you on a drone into the Moab where you have base jumpers jumping off. And North Face is actually rolling that across their stores in North America. And people can have that experience just like this person is having in Chicago, where you know, they get inspired before shopping. And so VR and advertising are a very natural fit as well. And then news. You know, news has really sort of been very interested in VR very quickly. So we've done work with ABC News, which has really been great. We trained their camera people for about a day on the use of our camera, which frankly, it's very easy to use. You basically just turn it on and it records. There are a lot of other things about it, how you tell a story, et cetera, you need to figure out. But just the mechanics of it is not hard. And they then took the camera first to Damascus in Syria, and they recorded some content there. And that's very powerful. You feel like you're on a rooftop in Damascus, in a square. You know, these are places most people probably wouldn't go. So actually feeling like you're there is fantastic. They then took it to North Korea. And did a great piece there where you're in front of a military parade. They took you into a subway in North Korea. And again, a place most people aren't really going to go to, but it feels great to actually be able to go there virtually and look around. And an interesting thing about the North Korea piece is ABC released a 360 version of it, a 30-second version of it on Facebook. And Mark Zuckerberg shared it, and it got, I think, 18 million views in 48 hours. So it was a way to really reach, you know, a lot of people very quickly, and then the people that wanted the full immersive experience could then go to the app and have that. And we've also done work with Sky News. They did a great piece in Greece from Lesbos, where the Syrian refugees are coming in, and you feel like you're right there on the beach, and you can see children coming and you know, adults, and it gives you a much better feeling of what it's like. So let's talk a little bit about the technology that's required. So that's actually our camera on a pretty big drone. This is what we did for the North Face footage. This was our first generation camera. We built this in the summer of 2013, and it used off-the-shelf components and 3D printed shell, and it's what allowed us to get our initial set of funding. We basically it was a big camera, weighed over 100 pounds, so it's not terribly practical. Our second generation cameras were basically modified GoPro rigs. You can see that here, where we had to modify, we had to add heat sinks, we had external SD cards, external power, etc. But with a rig like this, modified, you could actually run things for about 2 hours and get you know, a full 3D experience. However, the quality really, while okay for certain applications, really wasn't up to the standards of say people, you know, top filmmakers in Hollywood or professional filmmakers. So we decided to make our own camera, and so created the Jaunt 1 camera, which we built from the ground up for VR. Each module is, you know, built by us with, you know, much larger lenses than GoPro, much bigger sensors, fully synchronized. So it has a lot of the capabilities that you'd want. A global shutter sensor for fast-moving objects so that you don't get artifacts as objects are moving between modules. And with that, there comes a whole production workflow that you need. And one thing we've attempted to really do is make sure that the production workflow is easy for people to use. So make sure that we work with the existing tools that the content creators are used to. So what we've done is we have an automated workflow up in the cloud for creating the VR experience. So basically you push a button and it gets automatically stitched for you. And actually very quickly, even at very high resolutions. It sometimes requires running on several thousand servers up in the cloud at once to create the content quickly. In terms of the production pipeline, you can work with the Jaunt 1 camera. We also support other cameras. As I mentioned, we support the GoPro rigs if you want to use that. Ozo by Nokia has recently been released. We support that as well. You plug that into our cloud-based rendering system, and you automatically get the VR experience. Now, typically what most people want to do is download a high-res version of that and bring it into Final Cut or Premiere and do their editing and also do sound mixing. Another thing we support is Dolby Atmos, so that you can play sound anywhere in space, which is very important. I haven't discussed this, but sound is critical in VR. You got to capture 360 sound. If you hear a crash over on your left, and you look to your left, you better see the reason for the crash. If it happened over on your right, you realize something is wrong in VR. You know, and then finally we have an app that, as I mentioned, runs on all the different headsets, but I would say about 85% or maybe 90% of our users are on mobile today, and I think, if anything, that will only increase. And you know, one of the critical things is people say, well, there are only so many headsets out there. Estimates range maybe about 5 million headsets, of which over 4 million are mobile, Google Cardboard-like. Isn't that a hindrance? And yeah, it is a bit of a hindrance today, but the fact is you can reach many more people by taking the VR experience and providing it in a 360 format, both on Facebook and YouTube, even on your website. You also can have events around installations, essentially. We did at the Super Bowl, we had the NFL content, and I think about 10,000 people saw that content at that event. So there are various ways to reach people. So the reality is, by creating this sort of content, you can really reach tens of millions of people with a really cool and compelling content. So, you know, just to conclude, you know, the key thing is it's really taking off. 2016 is really the year where the mainstream audience is going to become aware of VR, probably get their first headsets. You know, the key thing for them is it's not enough to get a headset, they need content. And you know, that's one of the big challenges in VR, is we can't go out and license existing content. It does need to be created. You know, so we're reaching out to the content creators and say, look, you know, it's time to really create content, because that's what people are going to need. So that's it. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you very much, Jens.
Thanks.
We're not really, but a bit running out of time. Okay. So one question from your part, a quick one. Please, Robert, again.
Can you talk about the cost of the camera? We talked about thetas to 6 cameras, 10 cameras.
Yeah, so our camera is very, very expensive. So it's the way we work is we're not a camera company. We're really about content. So, and as I mentioned, we support other cameras. So we work with organizations through which we have some kind of distribution deal. And with those people, we make our camera available, we make our cloud-based system available, and distribution in our app available. So essentially, we really only work with the premium content creators. There's going to be tons of people doing user-generated content, you know, using GoPros, using thetas, using other things. And those will be available on Facebook, they'll be available on YouTube, there'll be a broad distribution for that. That's not the focus of Jaunt. You know, we're really working with sort of the premium content creators.
Okay, but coming back to the figure question, because I want to raise it too. If you are a media company and you want to invest in VR,
yeah.
So what might be a proper sum of money you have to take in your hands to say, like, okay, we really want to start it now, thinking money?
Yeah, I think to just get started, I mean, as Ben mentioned, I don't think you need that much money at all. You just need maybe, you know, a few $1,000s for the camera, maybe a drone, maybe a few other things just to get started. I mean, that's certainly, you know, a great way to get started. Now, if you want to do sort of more professional productions, you know, if you want to have a camera in the studio, you know, 60 minutes in VR or something like that, then I think it makes sense to upgrade to a truly professional camera like what we have. And then you know, we essentially work off of a subscription model where people come on and we have a distribution relationship.
Okay. So talk to you over the next 2 days. You're here till the end. Or not?
Yeah, I'm here till tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christensten.